Hey guys, it's Emma Vigling with TYT Politics. Sorry to the others who were watching the last stream, there seems to have been an error. But as everyone knows, last night Trump did, his joint address to both the Senate and the House. And first I wanted to give you my political beliefs, or not my political beliefs, but my predictions based on how people are going to respond to this speech, and then fact-checking, because he did lie a lot. But I'll admit it, guys, I think he did pretty well. He hit all the notes that he needed to. He was sufficiently populist. He talked about fair trade, not free trade, which is something that, the Democrats should co-opt, but they are too corporatist, so they won't. He did well, and he read the teleprompter sufficiently. Did he do well enough for the entire pundit class to literally lose their goddamn minds and say that, oh my god, he's presidential, is this the new Trump, is this the second coming of Jesus? No, he didn't do that well, but I do think that this is going to give him a spike in the polls. You can't just have this constant deluge of negativity in the media. The American people want hope, and that's why, for example, Hillary Clinton's strategy didn't work, which was just anti-Trump, Trump, Trump. When there's always negativity and an always negative message, people are looking for the positive in that. The current positive is that Donald Trump didn't fall on his face and did pretty well last night. So I do think, and this is kind of a bold prediction because this is a large jump, but I think that in the next week, a week from today, we will see Trump's approval numbers go up by 5 points. I understand that this is a bold prediction, but his current average is 43.7% of people approve and 50.1% disapprove. That is the Real Clear Politics average. I believe we will see a 5-point spike in approval. Again, I know that's bold, but we'll check back and see if I was actually right about that. So, let's go to the fact-checking, because Trump said a lot of false things last night, as per usual. Despite, being able to read, which apparently is the new standard for the mainstream media, some observations that I had before getting into the more hardcore fact-checking, where I have a lot of policy wonky stuff to throw at you guys. Trump observing Black History Month. Like, a few weeks ago, he literally just asked a black reporter to set up a meeting with the Congressional Black Caucus for him. And then, Mike Pence standing behind him, who literally won't investigate lead poisoning in East Chicago, Indiana, when he was governor. Jordan did fantastic coverage on that. I mean, the idea that these guys represent the black community or any minority population in this country is laughable, and he just kept saying that everyone of every color and creed followed my campaign. Oh, come on, man. Does anyone actually believe that? Also, the talking point that I hate from the Republicans: the freedom to purchase health insurance. That's what they need instead of Obamacare. That's why they want to repeal and replace. Replace with what? Paul Ryan apparently, or not apparently, I watched it, dodged the questions from CNN last night when he was being asked about it. He has no replacement plan. They just want to screw everyone over so their donors get enriched. But it's just the worst GOP talking point. I have the freedom to purchase the New York Rangers and the New York Giants, my two favorite sports teams. I don't have the money to do it, but I do have the freedom to. That's the Republican healthcare plan for you. Third, Trump keeps talking about getting rid of ISIS, but he just added $54 billion to the defense/Pentagon budget, meaning more bombs, more drone strikes, more military intervention. Despite running on an anti-interventionist policy, he has filled his cabinet with traditional Bush administration war hawks. So there's a disconnect there. Again, if you thought Trump was going to be less hawkish than Hillary Clinton, I thought that was a possibility, that would be maybe, besides trade, the only other issue he'd be better than her on. That's not the case. The U.S. is currently spending more on defense than since the end of World War II, and he's going to increase that. So its 2016 budget is more than $600 billion. In 1968, at the height of the Vietnam War, also, it was $569 billion in current dollars. So right now we are spending as much as we did at the end of World War II and during the Vietnam War, despite not being in as massive of a war as both of those time periods. But that's just to enrich defense contractors and to continue to beat that war drum. Hurrah, hurrah. So, now, fact-checking. Here we go. Bear with me, guys. I have a lot of stuff to throw at you. This was his most blatant lie, and he's repeated this throughout the campaign. 94 million Americans are out of the labor force. That's what he keeps saying. 94 million Americans are out of the labor force. That is a bold-faced lie, and I will get into that right now, because, 94 million, that 94 million number he constantly throws around, that number actually includes every American over the age of 16 and over retirement age. And that's high school students, college students, graduate students, people with disabilities who don't work, people who are not looking for work, stay-at-home parents. You may say that's probably an insignificant number of people, but it is not. I will read here. Out of the 93.8 million Americans aged 16 and up who are deemed not in the labor force, 9.7 million of them are between the ages of 16 and 19. Another 5.7 million are between 20 and 24, so college students. And 37.8 million are age 65 and over. In fact, 17.5 million are over 75 years old. Obviously, there's a huge population bump in that age group. What's left? This leaves 40.5 million Americans who are not in the labor force and are between 25 and 64, so potentially working people. It's possible to argue that this number should be a bit higher. College typically ends around 22, but not everyone goes to college, and healthy seniors today can usually work past 65 if they wish, but right off the top, he's overstating it. The official number of unemployed Americans is 8.3 million. That is less than 1/10 of what Trump says. Like, did anyone hear that 94 million number and go, that's not right. That doesn't sound right to me. That's intentionally misleading and lying to the American people in a massive congressional address. But you know what? He said it convincingly and he read the teleprompter, so the mainstream media is going to fawn over it and, be sexually aroused by it. Additionally, this was another lie that he said. In talking about immigration, he said this: as we speak tonight, we are removing gang members, drug dealers, and criminals that threaten our communities and prey on our very innocent civilians. That is speaking to his racist base, talking about, obviously Mexican and Latino immigrants, and that is actually directly contradicted by studies. This study came out recently, and it contradicts all of those claims about Mexicans being rapists and criminals and all of that, actually. It's a recent study published by the Journal of Ethnicity and Criminal Justice, and they use census data from the FBI, census data and FBI data from 1970 to 2010. Looking at various times and locations, the researchers saw that communities undergoing a demographic change due to immigration clearly don't experience significant increases in crime. In fact, even though these communities may feel like they were in flux due to population changes, crime was either stable or declined in communities that were incorporating more immigrants. The most striking finding comes from the authors' models for violent crime, murder, and robbery. The authors found that in 3 out of 4 statistical models, an increase in percentage of foreign-born residents was significantly associated with decreases in these 3 types of crimes. By the way, Inglourious Bastards, 3. In three types of crimes. In other words, when immigrants went up, violent crime went down. For example, rates of poverty crime declined more rapidly in cities with high percentages of foreign-born residents than they did in cities with low percentages of foreign-born residents. You know what that means? It just means that people who are immigrating here don't want to get caught. And look, people might, there's difference between correlation and causation. But Trump's claim is factually incorrect based on FBI and census data. But I guess that's fake news. Right? Another thing he was talking about, immigration being out of control. I will reiterate this important point from Pew Research. More Mexicans are leaving this country than coming in. There was a net loss of 140,000 Mexican immigrants from 2009 to 2014. And in 2016, less than half of all undocumented border crossers were Mexican. Since the end of the Great Recession, net migration from Mexico has been negative, meaning more Mexicans have left than have come into the United States. But I guess, America needs to kick everybody out and break up families because all they're doing is bringing drugs and crime and raping people when literally every statistical evidence points to the contrary. He also said that we have cleared the way for the construction of the Keystone and Dakota Access pipelines, thereby creating thousands of jobs. This is a lie, or at the very least, misleading. A 2014 State Department environmental review estimated that Keystone would support 42,000 temporary jobs over its 2-year construction period, about 3,900 of them in construction, the rest in support jobs such as food service. It's estimated that Keystone would create about 35 permanent jobs. Thousands of jobs. We're going to be winning again, guys. That's a lie. And, Jordan has done extensive reporting about that, on that. He also kept calling the Yemen raids a success, and was quite frankly exploiting the Navy SEAL Ryan Owens' memory. It had all of the trappings of traditional war drum beating and war propaganda, where they, look, the Navy SEAL's father wouldn't even meet with Trump, but he had the wife there. I feel horrible for this woman, and obviously the women and children that were killed in this raid due to Trump's complete ineptitude. It is not lost on me that Obama also killed women and children with drone strikes, but I am now focusing on the Trump administration, so just wanted to throw in that caveat. But by every account, the Yemen raid was not a success, not even close, and Republicans are saying so. Senator John McCain, chair of the Armed Services Committee, called the most recent U.S. raid in Yemen a failure following a classified briefing after the operation. Every military operation has objectives, and while many of the objectives of the recent raid in Yemen were met, I would not describe any operation that results in the loss of American life as a success. Okay, but other leaks and other reports from that classified briefing say that there was no actionable intelligence received from that raid. So not only did we kill people, we lost a Navy SEAL, and we did not get any actionable intelligence. Trump also was apparently, not even really in the room or focusing on it. So calling it a success is super Orwellian. It is not a success by any measure, including by your Republican colleagues. Trump also said that he was going to promote clean air and clean water, and literally the same day, President Trump signed an order directing the EPA to formally reconsider President Obama's clean water rule. So he said, I'm going to promote clean air and clean water, and on the same day, hours before he gave that speech, he told the EPA to reconsider Obama's clean water rule, which is certainly going to be done under Scott Pruitt, who is perhaps the most corrupt person in the cabinet. He is also cutting the EPA's staff by 1/5, so I guess that's how you're going to protect clean air and clean water. And lastly, look, I'm missing some stuff because he lied more, but I'm just giving you guys the highlights. I wanted to run through it for you kind of rapid fire style. Lastly, he keeps saying that he's going to drain the swamp. And this is what the media has to reiterate. If they are actually against Trump and they actually want to call him out on his BS, but they only want to focus on shiny objects and Russia, this is the stuff that could do him in. Earlier this week, National Economic Council Chairman Gary Cohn, the immediate past president of Goldman Sachs, released a list of 13 members on Trump's administrative panel, which helps the president shape and promote economic initiatives. Cohn called the group a best-in-class team of policy advisors to drive President Trump's bold plan for job creation and economic growth. Cohn has faced criticism from Democratic lawmakers and watchdog groups for accepting a $285 million payout for Goldman Sachs when he took a White House job overseeing policies that will affect the bank. That's also ignoring a former Obama ethics rule that said you could not do just that. But, rules don't apply to the Trump administration. Despite the questions about potential conflicts of interest, Cohn has filled out his council with power players from the same corporations that have stake in the White House economic policy. Cohn's 2 deputies are Kenneth Juster, who was a partner and managing director at Warburg Pincus, these firm names, and Jeremy Katz, a former managing director at GCM Grosvenor. Those firms are key members of private equity industry with significant legislative interests in Congress. Drain the swamp of all those lobbyists and all those big money people, right, Donald Trump? That's what you were going to do. That's what you said you were going to do. I thought that's what you were going to do. Yet you are still championing it in your address when you are doing the absolute opposite. Whew. All right. That's kind of my recap. I just also If the media called him out on his corruption, then he couldn't pit himself against the Democratic establishment or the other corrupt people in Washington. He is a part of that fold. Don't let him separate himself from that corruption, because he is that corruption. He is a product of that corruption, and he is bathing in it. You know, it's just weird. By weird, that was such a naive statement at one point, because it's not weird, it's by design. They don't want to talk about the corruption because they benefit from it. But that would be the most effective way to tear down Donald Trump. Blech. Alright, guys. Have a great day.